All right, welcome everyone. We are Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
Bungo Stray Dogs, Season 2, Episode 3. Is Odasaku dead?
Oda.
Because I really hope he's not.
Oda has One Piece to write. You can't just kill him here.
Exactly. You know, like, he's been around for a long time. Something as simple as just, it takes, you know, a poison that takes more than a few seconds. Like, he would have been prepared for something like that, right?
I can't wait for the mystery of all this to unravel. This feels so much like Watchmen in like a weird way, with like
the mystery death maybe that starts everything, or
right, but like the one that seems to be one that could have come from a friend, someone that knew specifically how to counter his powers. You know.
Yep. Like it's one of those things where I don't know how long this arc is going to go. It could just be a 3 or 4 episode arc, right? That could be all that it is. And then if that's the case, it makes a lot of sense for Odasaku to die here. But like, he's been the perspective character for this arc. I don't want him to die here. Like,
I'm totally fine with getting more perspective from Dazai, because we did have that stuff with the Kutogawa.
That's true.
We could combo this and bring this as everyone that was close to Dazai, he ends up losing.
Right.
You know, and regardless of whether it's his own actions or other people's actions. You know?
And given the fact that this is probably the story of how Dazai left the Port Mafia, it does make sense for, at some point, some really bad thing to happen that causes the focus to shift to Dazai's perspective. Right. And then we can see how it happens from his point of view.
Yeah. So, y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion. That's a dick punch.
Yeah, so.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. We are really emotionally attached to Oda, like, before all this happened in this episode.
Yep.
But this is such a really, really powerful way to get us, like in his head, in his heart, and in what he's going through right now.
Oh no, there's a part of me that is even still kind of keeping myself emotionally distant, because that was a thing. Because the thing is that there are, because this is a backstory,
right?
There are certain things that you can guess will probably happen at some point, right? Because, you know, we need to get to where the story starts, right?
Yep.
So I figured that, you know, Oda wasn't going to have a happy ending.
Yeah, both
right?
of them.
Yeah, both of them
very much just die.
In a lot of ways, Dazai wouldn't either. Just, he'd still be alive.
Right, exactly. He would live through it all.
Right, and hence why maybe he wants to kill himself.
Yeah,
you know?
And hence his line about suffering and...
Exactly.
Remember how he said about choosing a place to die? You want to know what my crazy thing is that I think we've just gotten about almost everything to connect the dots to, except with whatever's going to happen in the next episode or two or whatever, is that he wants to go and join back up at that bar for a drink. But in order to do that, he needs to join his friends who have passed on, and this is the only way that he can do it, is he just needs to find the right time and place to die.
Yep.
But he can't do it.
Right.
Every time, fate basically is like, nope, you have to keep living and suffering. And he's like, shit. And then he just goes and has a drink by himself.
Okay.
Like, that's my thought, is that the goofy aspect of who he is set up that way so that we don't immediately distance ourselves emotionally from him because he's so dark and like wanting to end his life and stuff.
Well, and so we can also be surprised by it. You know, it's the hiding in plain sight.
I mean, sure, yeah, but I mean... There's a possibility as well that when this was being written out originally, that it wasn't entirely thought out to the slightest detail of what the reason is exactly. But it's a goofy shtick that we then get the twist of, there's something that he's lost that he might be wanting to find again.
Yeah, which makes sense, because if you're going to have, you know, Dazai as a sort of secondary main character, right?
Yeah.
And given the fact of who he's based off of Dazai, then all the tragedy you can pile on him, go for it.
Yep. So
and the fact that we're getting his backstory here through someone else's perspective, I mean, okay.
This episode is very unique from what I would say typical Bungo Stray Dogs episodes have given us thus far. 1, the OP was done much later. 2, we got an action set piece in the beginning of the episode that was a really, really well animated version of basically like the bad guy being built up by being stronger than someone that we originally considered a power scale kind of effect in Akutagawa, and showing that Akutagawa has taken a lot of L's along the way, basically up until where we are in the present.
Right.
And that's part of what makes him, I would say, easier to empathize with in some level, is that he's always getting stomped down by people that are stronger than him. And that struggle is its own thing. But when Oda comes in and we realize, oh my god, it's not some kind of like control-based ability or anything like that, or some kind of mimicry thing.
It's just he happens to have that same power.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's like, of course he'd be looking for somebody that has a similar power to him at that point, because one, being able to actually commiserate, because in a sense,
nothing surprises you anymore.
Well, nothing surprises you, but also, even though you are mortal,
yes,
you're kind of immortal in a way,
right?
Because you have lived 10,000 lives.
Yes,
and you are all the time,
and you basically only can choose where you're going to die.
Right,
you can't let yourself die based on your own like human instincts, because
theoretically, as soon as they looked at each other, they could have spent 10,000 years together.
Yep.
Right, like that, because
they can get lost in a single moment,
right? Just
exploring each other's choices.
Yep, exactly. And those choices then build off of each other and interact with each other because they know the other person can see that future and all that stuff.
I love this, because I think there's one other story that I've experienced that had some similar aspect where we had two precogs of sorts, basically have that little moment with each other where they...
Sanderson's done it.
Yeah, which one did Sanderson do it in?
Mistborn.
Oh. Yeah. Wait, yeah. I don't think I ever finished the first one.
It didn't get as crazy. It was more of just like for combat capabilities, not for like actual like dialogue and stuff like that.
Ah, sure.
But yeah, that was a fun, crazy thing to explore. So, the idea that it's like, yeah, we can both see the future. All right, so it's basically just going to be who's better with a gun, or like
right.
It's like, okay, yeah, that's just about how it would go.
Because just because they can perceive the future, like they get a glimpse of it in their mind's eye, they might have something about what they're doing be obfuscated via some kind of just literal perception-based thing.
But what's twisted about the way that the kids died is that it's not just that they died, but it's that they died they were killed in such a way that Odasaku would see it happen in the future and in the present and just be unable to stop it. That's
cruel.
That's a whole other kind of messed up.
Yeah.
So, can't write that third part anymore. Well, that means that taking life's on the table again.
Yeah, I have multiple, I would say, really, really like positive things to say about this episode. First thing is that the initial just surprise of, okay, Oda's alive. Fantastic.
Cool.
That tells us one thing, is that ball with the poison on it was set up by Ango.
Yep.
That is something that he has as a or that the Black Ops that he's working with at that time have as an anti, Oda weapon, just in case they have to deal with him.
Right. And
they used it here just to make sure that there wouldn't be any issues. Yeah.
And yet Ango made sure that it was a poison that wouldn't kill him.
Exactly. It was something that incapacitated him. That was the obvious tell that this was then a work of someone who's a triple agent, but like not someone who's a double agent or triple agent, whatever, but someone that's
complicated.
Someone that's not against them, antagonistic.
Right, exactly.
So that's one thing. But the reveal that, okay, he was a triple agent, he was working for the Internal Affairs Group to monitor the Port Mafia, and then Mimic comes along as a foreign entity that they then have to go, oh, as Japan, we have to investigate them to make sure that they're not a problem. We already have someone that's doing a great job at this. Oh, you're working overtime, buddy. You go in and spy with them. And he's like, oh my God, this is nightmare stressful. So he comes to the bar probably just to have some sanity with his friends,
Yep.
But I love that this is something that is bearing like such a burden on him that you can tell he's doing everything just to keep them out of it. Like the fact that Oda showed up at the building and he's like, shit,
You're not supposed to be here.
No. In some ways, because of how much Oda takes on the debts, or acknowledges the debts that he believes he has to other people, and Dazai makes a mention of no one remembers your debts. Everyone's forgotten them. That's such a powerful line, considering what happened here, because in some ways, Oda is still acting out his debts, if you will, to the children.
Yep.
In order to come back and make this be his thing of his story that he's writing, if you will. The one that he's writing to prep for writing part 3. And yet...
Yeah, his personal story.
Yeah, exactly, his personal story. And yet, sorry, kind of in a way, part 3's already been written, and it blows, man. It blows.
Wow.
Like, yeah. I totally knew what I was doing with that.
Yeah. And now he's going to write a different story.
Yep.
And it's going to be writing out some other people's stories. Yep.
Oh my god.
I am terrified for whoever gets in his way. And
they built this up.
They built this up.
Since like the first episode, they're like, if ever you cross Oda, you do not want to.
And I cannot be excited for this.
I can't either.
I
know.
Because
it's just pain.
Like there's an element of when horrible things happen in a story, and you know that there's going to be some good old vindication that usually ends with 2 in the back of the head for individuals involved, that where you can be like, hell yeah, they had that coming and they were awful and stuff, and so I'm excited to see that happen. But
now this is just
just the nails being put in the coffin of the executioner, right?
Yep.
Because as horrible as it is that those kids died, that doesn't mean that you fundamentally can't finish that story.
No.
But Oda realized he was incapable, right?
Yep.
Like it's the I am not sufficient.
I am no longer able.
I don't think I can do that, right? You know, and that's the
I can't see the story and how it could end.
Exactly. It's the ultimate death of hope, right? Where all of a sudden it's no, there is no future, no longer human kind of a thing, right? Okay, all that's left is blood and violence, go for it, right? And it will be glorious and many people will watch in awe and dread. And then it'll be over.
And you'll end up leaving Dazai alone. One of the things that I'm rather terrified of this with regards to it is that and this is why I think the arc could go a little bit longer, is that depending on how things go, there's some things with regards to the fact that Ango is a triple agent that leads me to think that there might be some things that Mimic is involved in that go beyond just the fact that their leader wants to find the proper place to die and find someone that will give him meaning and purpose. And if that personal desire is just part of the big picture.
Desire.
Yeah. But Ango's side of things leads to a skyscraper, slay the spire, dungeon crawl for Oda,
because that's the real question is who actually killed the kids, right?
That's the thing. We assume it's Jeed. But the thing is
doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be, and that's the thing that gets crazy here is that Ango could have been the one that had to let that info slip. And if Oda finds out that this trail leads back to the Port Mafia, this could end up with a Dazai Oda chaos battle that goes with them going up against the Port Mafia, and then Akutagawa comes in, and then the boss comes in, and then that's why in the OP at the very end you have Dazai falling from the skyscraper in season 1. That I've been waiting?
It could be any of the 3 parties.
It could be any of them, but I really have been waiting for the
non-literal representation of Dazai falling from the skyscraper.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but also if the literal thing potentially being just out there. So I am terrified, not because of what Oda is about to do, but I am terrified because I feel like I just in this episode realized the link between Dazai of the past and Dazai of the present. And that is that he has this line here where he's talking about a life of suffering.
Oh, yeah.
And it's in the bar, and it's something that like breaks my heart if my assertion about what this means for him as a character is right here. So he's telling, Ango, go before I change my mind. This is how it is. I always lose it, end up closing. It is given that everything that is worth wanting will be lost the moment I obtain it. There's nothing worth pursuing at the cost of prolonging a life of suffering. This is a mindset that is common for a lot of people.
And it's understandable.
It's very easy to understand. If you're pursuing something that is going to give you something, you go, oh, okay, what's the cost associated with that obtaining in the process of pursuing? If the cost is that your life's suffering that you've been constantly dealing with just gets prolonged and keeps going, you eventually come to a very simple choice where you're like, no, the suffering outweighs the gain. And that's why do I continue this anymore?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why we constantly look for meaning in things like fiction or purpose in
anything.
Work or anything, right? Because it's life is pain, Highness. Anyone who says otherwise is selling something.
Yep.
And that's while you could say that's a pessimistic outlook, it's really kind of true.
It's just factual,
right?
Yeah.
And the question is can we find the things that make it worth the suffering,
exactly.
Right? And that's the thing about the statement is it's not the statement itself. It's the idea that it's more of a conclusion, right? That there is nothing worth pursuing,
specifically for him because of the way all the things that he's gained end up. Or the second he gains it, he loses it.
Nothing that I could actually pursue measures up to the prolonging the life of suffering that I currently have. Normally, you would try and say, okay, there's a life that has a hell of a lot of suffering because it's life, right?
Because that's everyone's life.
Yeah, exactly. To different degrees and natures and all that stuff, right?
Yep.
But it's can you find something else that either outbalances it, or is just so fundamentally different that it's still worth going after, even if the
suffering is so extreme.
Right, exactly.
And that's where I think most people are at, is that they have different measures of suffering that they're dealing with in everyday life. Some kinds of suffering are small and superficial. Some are deep, intrinsic, and inescapable in some ways.
And suffering is different from person to person of what they can bear and all of that.
Yeah. And in some ways, the longer you suffer, the better you get at surviving it. But
hopefully.
But the fact that this all comes after, like you said, it's a conclusion, after Dazai's whole talk with Ango there, and then Oda has his moment of acknowledging it and looks off into the side, and you can almost see the roots of what's about to,
his response to what will end up happening.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then just the little lingering quiet moment of where Dazai's voice wavers, and you can hear him quivering in his voice as he says their names. He says, if there ever comes a time when the department and the port mafia don't exist and we all become free men, and he's like, oh, wait, sorry.
That's Ango.
This was Ango that said that. That's right, I'm sorry.
And then
Ango says that you can hear the quivering, and he's like, let's come back here, and he's like, no, don't say
it. And so there's something that I kind of got from that, which doesn't at all have to be what was intended. But when I think of if I was Oda in that situation and I were to say, don't say it, the reason why I would say don't say it wouldn't actually be because you don't deserve to say that or anything like that. I don't think it would be like that.
I don't want to hear that.
Not even that. For me, I think it would be the, and granted, this is maybe painting myself in a positive light. There's a very good chance that I would be so emotionally compromised by what's, happening.
Just say what you want to say.
But that it's if you say it, it might not happen.
Oh, you might jinx it. I see what you're saying.
Don't jinx it. Don't say anything.
Well, the thing is, he knows what he's about to say.
Right. No, exactly.
But he can see the future.
Well, yes. Yeah. He right. And even if he couldn't see the future, he'd be able to tell, right?
Right.
But the idea that it's they all came here without realizing, that Oda and Dazai came here not knowing that Ango would actually be here. Ango came here not knowing that they would actually be here. Right. But they ended up here. right?
Yeah.
And don't say it, because as long as you don't say it, maybe there's a chance that could happen in the future.
But we know it's not going to happen because of the music, the way he walks out.
Probably
and
not.
And he very much exits this whole area like it's a stage. Mm-hmm. And everyone else is silent, unmoving.
Yeah, he walks past them and
the
all
whole
that.
Scene lingers, and then we get the shot of the
picture with the
glass.
glass.
With the glass, a solitary glass, a lonely glass.
Sure.
And...
yeah, it's
so simple, but it works so well.
Exactly, and this is the kind of stuff that I love when stories take their time on these kinds of things, because it would be very easy for it to just be like, oh, you're a traitor, go, don't come back, and then they leave, and then that's it, right? And it takes 10 seconds, and the emotional magnitude of what just happened could theoretically end up being completely lost, or whatever.
Yeah, it feels like at least this episode had multiple little, like, I don't want to say directing moments, but it felt like directing moments where it just understood the emotion of the scene and did some really cool things with the visual perspective that was really cool. Another one is just the glistening water.
Oh, sure.
Almost as if he's going towards his death here. He's getting his last little bit of beauty as he's walking with the stuff for the kids. Yeah. Then the shot showing from the perspective underneath the car where the bomb is.
Yeah.
Showing him like walking up to the building.
Yep.
I love this. I also am a big fan of the don't show the face, show the item dropped to communicate the instant what's going on.
It's the no visual could possibly communicate the emotion that this person is feeling, so we're going to show you the absence and the action so that way you can fill in for yourself what that actually looks like and means.
Yeah. And then little details like not all 5 of the kids' shoes were at the door there.
Oh.
Which is just a nice little thing to know that something is wrong because they should all be together.
Ah, gotcha.
So you know that at least 2 of them are not here.
Right. It's it's
but
and also just this season in general so far with this arc and everything has been much more somber kind of in tone than the rest of the show, and this is where I feel like it really like benefits from it. If we had been having like pivots to comedy and stuff, not necessarily anytime near this final scene where kids blow up in the car.
Yeah, you can't do that here.
But just in this whole arc or even this episode, I feel like it would detract from this. So
totally.
I'm really glad that we had this here, so that then we can go into the tortured cries of Urasaku.
But I just love his thoughts here as well. Like, my throat hurt.
I heard someone screaming, and it's oh God, is one of the kids somehow still, oh no.
But no, he's so in shock from the explosion. His ears are ringing to the point where he can just barely hear someone screaming, but he can't tell that it's him because of how bad his throat has been hurt and messed up by this. And in some ways, like the whole words and the pain and everything just caught in there, and he can't let it out. And then it slowly builds, and you can feel the voice actor like letting it escape and like gasps, and it's just and then nope, I can't write it anymore. I can no longer write a story.
And we know what that means.
Yeah, we know exactly what that means.
They say fear a calm man's wrath. I'm scared. Yeah,
I'm scared too. More for just how I'm going to emotionally feel about all this.
Yep.
But okay, this was a phenomenal episode for the show thus far, and there are a bunch of other little things that were just like just extra little things. Like I love the cleverness of Jeed being like, oh, I saw how he blocked the bullets, so I'm going to fire one at the field at the same time and another one down at his leg. Yeah, like that's just a cool tactical thing as well. But
Yeah, that is a great example of showing how, even if you can, because theoretically, if someone can see the future, right, and they're up against someone who has superpowers that can do things that categorically just surpass your own capacity, theoretically, they could still absolutely slaughter you, and you would have nothing that you could do against them because they have superpowers and stuff, right? Doesn't matter how far in the future you can see it, you can't avoid it, right? But here, this is an example of, no. Even if you do have the powers and stuff, even if you can block bullets and whatnot, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're impervious, right? And for someone who can see the future, it's just, yeah, no problem. I can get around this easy peasy.
Right, exactly. There was another moment, I'm trying to remember who it was that said it, but I think it was Dazai, who was basically saying, like, wow, you got quite the... who would have thought
suitor.
The enemy leader you just met would turn into such an earnest suitor?
Mm-hmm.
That... There's little bits of dialogue in this show where I'm like, I really find that to be funny in a way that
it's sort of a dark comedy.
It's a dark comedy thing, but it's also like a fun it's a fun perspective on the incident that makes light of it and brings levity to it, despite how crazy serious this arc is.
Exactly, right. It's the kind of comedy that the characters need in order to maintain their sanity within this situation, rather than something that is within the show for the sake of the audience.
Yeah.
Even though it also helps the audience, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
Just making sure I didn't miss anything crazy during that part where I was freaking out about the potential aspect of what was going on in Dazai's head here. This part where they were talking in the in the conflict is basically just that them deciding that Ango is their best lead in all of this.
Yep. And if they were to somehow find him, well, we know where he'd be.
Yeah. This is the part that made me threw me off when I was thinking about to say they're strange looking for war so that they can find a place worthy of their deaths. And it says their wish to have meaningful deaths is something I hadn't thought about. And it's just okay. So that made me think about Dazai hasn't thought about that yet. That line was so on the nose of I haven't thought about that yet, to be like, wait a minute. So this Dazai isn't suicidal.
Right.
Which means then that this backstory is also going to give us the answer to that.
Yep.
And I think I've hit the nail pretty close to the head with the fact that, well, there was someone in this story that taught them what it means to do that.
Right.
And they probably died gaining something. But will that lesson be passed along then?
Yeah. Because there's three big things that need to happen in this backstory, or that are kind of set up to happen in order to connect it to the present.
Okay.
One is that Dazai leaves the Port Mafia. That's the most obvious one, right?
Yep.
The next one is that Dazai becomes suicidal. And the third one is that Dazai becomes a much kinder person.
Wow.
Because right now...
I don't know if he can become a kinder person...
Right.
That quickly.
But currently, Odasaku is the heart of sort of what we've seen here. Right, like he's the one with the kids and things like that. Right, Dazai is he doesn't take care of the orphans. Right, he made that clear to Akutagawa. Right.
To be fair, most of the time when we see Dazai, it is in the context of all these kind and lovely people and crazy people and stuff. So it might just be that he's in Big Brother mode and he's wanting to.
That's totally a possibility.
And he always has this cold side to him.
Sure.
Just,
Yeah, he in the times that we've seen him interact with Akutagawa,
yes,
in the first season, it still did have not nearly as extreme. It was
very stern.
But it did have a reminiscent vibe, like that sort of feels like, maybe, this back then it was this bubbling up to the surface a little bit.
Sure.
But yeah.
Ooh. Okay, but y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get an early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us and the community there about this show, about anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
We stream every weekday. The info's in the description.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all
next time.